Hi guys, today we are going to find out what if Hannibal had conquered Rome? Picture this, you're standing on the battlefields of Cannae, watching Roman legions crumble beneath Hannibal's tactical genius. The air fills with dust and screams as 70,000 Romans fall in a single day. You probably won't survive this alternate timeline where Rome's invincibility shatters forever. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments below. I love seeing where this journey takes us around the world. Now, sit back and let's dive into today's alternate journey together. You're witnessing history's greatest what if unfold as Hannibal's war elephant's trumpet victory. Instead of retreating to Carthage after Cannae, you watch Hannibal receive massive reinforcements from Spain and North Africa. His brother Hasdrubal successfully crosses the Alps with fresh troops, linking up at the perfect moment. You watch as Hannibal's enlarged army marches directly on Rome itself, bypassing the usual siege tactics that historically failed. The city's walls, never designed to withstand a prolonged assault, crumble under Carthaginian siege engines and African engineering expertise. Roman senators flee northward as you witness the unthinkable, Hannibal's elephants parade through the Forum Romanum. Without Rome's survival, Scipio Africanus never gets his chance to invade North Africa and threaten Carthage directly. You observe how the single change prevents the Battle of Zama entirely, leaving Hannibal's homeland secure and prosperous. Carthaginian fleets now dominate the western Mediterranean without Roman interference, establishing permanent bases in Sicily and Sardinia. The ripple effects spread outward as you realize that Rome's client states across Italy suddenly find themselves without their protector. Many Italian tribes switch sides immediately, joining Hannibal's growing coalition rather than face his unstoppable military machine. You're witnessing the moment when the Mediterranean's future shifts from Roman to Carthaginian hands forever. You witness the transformation as Carthaginian admirals establish permanent naval bases across every major Mediterranean island. Trade routes that once enriched Rome now flow directly to Carthage, making it the wealthiest city in the ancient world. Phoenician merchants resume their ancestral dominance of Mediterranean commerce, with purple dye and silver flowing through Carthaginian ports. You watch as Greek city-states scramble to negotiate favorable terms with their new Carthaginian overlords rather than face conquest. The famous Punic engineering corps begins constructing massive harbors and warehouses from Spain to modern-day Turkey. You observe how Carthaginian coinage becomes the standard currency across the Mediterranean basin, replacing Roman denarii. Ancient trade languages shift as Punic becomes the lingua franca of merchants from Gibraltar to the Levant. Egyptian grain shipments, previously destined for Rome, now feed Carthaginian armies and growing urban populations. You're watching the birth of a true Mediterranean empire, unified under Carthaginian naval supremacy and commercial expertise. You observe as Hannibal's diplomatic genius forges unprecedented alliances with Celtic tribes across Gaul and Germanic peoples beyond the Rhine. Without Roman pressure, these northern warriors eagerly join Carthaginian campaigns, providing fierce infantry and skilled cavalry. The Helvetii, Nervii, and Cimbri form a massive barbarian confederation under Carthaginian leadership and coordination. You watch as Hannibal establishes military academies in tribal territories, training Celtic and Germanic warriors in Mediterranean warfare. These allied forces become Carthage's northern shield, preventing any future Roman resurgence from Gallic or Germanic territories. Druids and Germanic shamans find common ground with Carthaginian religious practices, creating syncretic spiritual movements. You witness how Carthaginian gold flows northward, purchasing loyalty and transforming tribal economies across Central Europe. Celtic metalworking expertise combines with Carthaginian engineering knowledge, producing superior weapons and armor for the Confederation. The Rhine becomes Carthage's northern frontier, defended by mixed Punic-Celtic garrisons in strategically positioned fortresses. You're watching the creation of a multicultural empire that spans from North Africa to the forests of Germania. You witness the Greek world splitting dramatically as city-states choose between supporting Carthaginian hegemony or clinging to Roman memory. Athens and Corinth pragmatically embrace Carthaginian rule, opening their ports to Punic fleets and merchants seeking eastern expansion. Sparta, predictably, refuses submission and forms a desperate alliance with surviving Roman settlements in southern Italy. You observe how Carthaginian gold transforms the Athenian agora into a bustling international marketplace rivaling Alexandria itself. The Ptolemaic fleet begins joint operations with Carthaginian ships, patrolling the eastern Mediterranean against piracy and rebellion. You watch as Greek philosophers and scientists migrate to Carthage, creating new intellectual centers in North Africa. Spartan warriors launch desperate raids against Carthaginian supply lines, but their isolation makes victory impossible. The famous Library of Alexandria receives Carthaginian funding, becoming a center for multicultural learning and research. You're witnessing how Greek culture adapts and transforms under Carthaginian influence rather than simply disappearing. Rhodes maintains its independence by serving as a neutral trading hub between all Mediterranean powers. You observe Ptolemaic Egypt calculating its survival odds and swiftly abandoning its Roman alliance for Carthaginian protection. The Nile Delta becomes a crucial granary for Hannibal's expanding empire, feeding armies from Spain to Asia Minor. You watch as Egyptian engineers collaborate with Carthaginian architects, creating magnificent hybrid monuments celebrating their new partnership. Alexandria's famous lighthouse now guides Carthaginian war galleys alongside Egyptian merchant vessels into the harbor. The ancient Persian trade routes through Egypt shift dramatically, now flowing toward Carthage rather than Rome's defunct networks. You witness how Egyptian priests adapt their ceremonies to include Carthaginian deities, creating fascinating religious syncretism. Syrian and Palestinian territories, previously Roman clients, negotiate tributary relationships with their new Carthaginian overlords. The Seleucid Empire recognizes Carthaginian sovereignty over the eastern Mediterranean, preventing costly warfare. You're watching the domino effect as Middle Eastern powers realign themselves around Carthaginian rather than Roman authority. Jewish communities across the region find themselves under Carthaginian rule, adapting their traditions accordingly. You witness Christianity's dramatically different trajectory as it spreads through Carthaginian trade networks instead of Roman imperial structures. Without Constantine's conversion, Christian communities develop more diverse theological traditions across North African and Middle Eastern cities. You observe how Carthaginian religious tolerance allows Christianity to coexist peacefully with traditional Punic and Celtic beliefs. The Apostle Paul's missionary journeys take entirely different routes, following Carthaginian merchant ships rather than Roman roads. You watch as Christian monasteries establish themselves in the Atlas Mountains, creating unique North African spiritual traditions. Alexandria becomes Christianity's theological center instead of Rome, producing distinctly African interpretations of Christian doctrine. The religion spreads northward through Celtic Druids who find parallels between Christian and ancient nature worship. You're witnessing how Christianity remains more mystical and diverse without Roman imperial systematization and control. Carthaginian merchants carry Christian texts to India and beyond, creating Eastern Christian communities centuries earlier. The faith develops multiple competing centers of authority rather than a single papal hierarchy based in Rome. You observe the remarkable technological fusion as Carthaginian naval engineering combines with Roman architectural knowledge and Celtic metalworking. Hannibal's engineers perfect new siege engines that blend African innovation with captured Roman military technology. You watch as Carthaginian cities adopt Roman urban planning principles while maintaining their distinctive Punic character. The famous Carthaginian harbors expand using Roman concrete techniques, creating massive port facilities across the Mediterranean. You witness how Celtic blacksmiths working with Carthaginian bronzeworkers produce superior weapons and tools. Roman road-building expertise gets adapted for Carthaginian trade routes, connecting North Africa to northern European territories. The decimal system spreads faster through Carthaginian commercial networks than it ever did through Roman conquest. You're watching the birth of new governmental systems that blend Carthaginian merchant councils with Roman administrative efficiency. Carthaginian ships incorporate Roman navigational improvements while maintaining their traditional shallow draft advantages for coastal trading. This technological synthesis creates innovations that neither civilization could have achieved independently. You witness Hannibal's successors launching systematic campaigns into Gaul, establishing permanent Carthaginian settlements along the Atlantic coast. The conquest of modern-day France proceeds methodically, with Carthaginian colonies sprouting from Marseilles to Bordeaux. You observe how Germanic tribes beyond the Rhine eagerly invite Carthaginian protection against hostile eastern neighbors. Carthaginian expeditions reached the British Isles, establishing trading posts and military bases in southern England. You watch as Carthaginian naval technology enables exploration of the African coast far beyond previous limits. The Atlantic Ocean becomes a Carthaginian lake as settlements spread to the Canary Islands and beyond. You're witnessing the birth of European civilization fundamentally different from anything history actually produced. Celtic Druids and Carthaginian priests create syncretic religious practices that spread throughout Western Europe. The Latin language never achieves dominance, replaced by a mixture of Punic, Celtic, and Germanic tongues. You observe how this alternate Europe develops maritime rather than continental cultural characteristics. You witness the profound transformation of language as Punic becomes the diplomatic tongue from Gibraltar to the Black Sea. Legal systems across the Mediterranean adopt Carthaginian commercial law, creating unified trade regulations that Rome never achieved. You observe how art and literature flourish under Carthaginian patronage, producing works that blend African, European, and Asian influences. The alphabet itself evolves differently, with Phoenician characters spreading instead of Latin script throughout the civilized world. You watch as mathematical and scientific knowledge advances faster through Carthaginian trade networks than Roman military conquest ever allowed. Religious pluralism becomes the norm rather than the exception, with multiple faiths coexisting peacefully under Carthaginian tolerance. The concept of citizenship expands beyond Roman limitations, creating truly multicultural societies across the empire. You're witnessing a world where maritime commerce, not military conquest, shapes the fundamental character of civilization. This alternate timeline produces explorers who reach the Americas centuries earlier than Columbus ever could have. The legacy of Carthaginian dominance creates a Mediterranean world unrecognizable from the Rome-centered reality we know. The world settles into a rhythm entirely different from our timeline, where purple-sailed ships carry spices and ideas across azure waters. You've journeyed through an alternate reality where military genius reshaped not just empires, but the very soul of human civilization. In this timeline, tolerance triumphed over conquest, commerce over control, and cultural fusion over forced assimilation. The ripple effects of one man's victory at Cannae created a world where diversity flourished instead of uniformity. Perhaps this reminds us that history's greatest turning points often hinge on single moments of individual brilliance and courage. The butterfly effect of Hannibal's success demonstrates how fragile our actual timeline truly was, and how differently things might have unfolded. What fascinates you most about this alternate Mediterranean world, the religious tolerance, the technological fusion, or the maritime civilization that emerged?